When you look at the moon through the night sky, it seems frozen in time, a silent, unmoving world of craters and dust. But have you ever noticed something strange? There's no wind on the moon. No clouds drift across its surface, no dust storms swirl, and even the footprints left by astronauts decades ago remain perfectly preserved. Why is that? And what does it really mean for a world to exist without wind? To understand why the moon has no wind, we need to start with something fundamental: the atmosphere. On Earth, the air we breathe forms a protective blanket called the atmosphere. It's a mixture of gases, mostly nitrogen and oxygen, held close to the planet by gravity. The atmosphere gives rise to air pressure, weather, clouds, and of course, wind. Wind is simply air in motion, driven by differences in temperature and pressure. But the moon doesn't have this invisible blanket. It has no substantial atmosphere to trap gases, maintain pressure, or circulate heat. And without air, there can be no wind. But let's dig deeper. Why doesn't the moon have an atmosphere in the first place? After all, many planets and moons in the solar system do. The answer lies in physics. The moon's gravity is too weak to hold on to gas molecules. Gravity is the force that keeps the atmosphere tied to a planet. The stronger the gravity, the easier it is to hold gases close. Earth's gravity is about 6 times stronger than the moon's, and that difference makes all the difference. Any gas that might have formed around the moon billions of years ago simply escaped into space. There's another reason. The moon doesn't have a magnetic field like Earth's. Our planet's magnetic field acts like an invisible shield, protecting the atmosphere from being stripped away by the solar wind, the constant stream of charged particles coming from the sun. The moon, however, lost its magnetic field long ago. That means when solar wind hits the moon, there's nothing to stop those particles from blowing away any light gases that might try to stay near the surface. Over time, every trace of atmosphere was erased. So the moon today is what scientists call an airless body. It does have a very thin layer of particles called an exosphere, but this is nothing like an atmosphere. It's so thin that the molecules rarely collide. In fact, if you gathered all the gases in the moon's exosphere and compressed them, they would fit into a single large room. So technically, there are atoms and molecules near the surface, but they behave more like individual specks of dust than like air. Now, what happens to a place that has no atmosphere, no air, and no wind? The first thing is silence. Complete silence. On Earth, sound travels through air as vibrations, but with no air on the moon, there's nothing to carry those vibrations. That means even if you stood next to a massive explosion, you wouldn't hear a thing. Astronauts on the moon can only communicate through their radio transmitters. Their voices don't echo, and footsteps make no sound at all. The only vibrations travel through the ground, not the air. The second consequence is that the moon's surface never changes much. On Earth, wind constantly reshapes the landscape, eroding rocks, shifting sand dunes, and spreading dust. But on the moon, nothing moves. A footprint, a piece of equipment, or even a flag remains just as it was placed, unless struck by a meteorite. When Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon in 1969, his footprint became one of the most iconic images in human history. And it's still there today, perfectly preserved, because there's no wind or rain to erase it. The absence of wind also affects the way the moon's surface looks. Without weathering from air or moisture, lunar rocks don't smooth out over time. Craters created by asteroid impacts millions or even billions of years ago remain sharp-edged and clear. The entire surface is covered in a layer of fine gray dust called regolith, formed by billions of years of meteorite impacts. Each impact breaks rocks apart, but nothing moves the dust afterward. Every grain stays exactly where it landed. In fact, some scientists call the moon a museum of the solar system, because its surface preserves the record of cosmic history that Earth's weather would have long since erased. Now, while the moon doesn't have wind like Earth, it does experience something that's often mistaken for movement, the solar wind. But that's not wind in the way we understand it. The solar wind is a flow of charged particles, mostly protons and electrons, emitted by the sun. They travel through space at speeds of about 400 kilometers per second and occasionally strike the moon's surface. But since there's no atmosphere to scatter or carry them, they don't behave like air. Instead, they hit directly, sometimes knocking atoms off the lunar soil, a process known as sputtering. Over billions of years, this has slightly changed the chemistry of the moon's surface, but it doesn't create wind as we know it. Without air to scatter sunlight, the moon sky is permanently black even in daytime. When sunlight hits the surface, it doesn't create a blue glow like it does on Earth. That's why astronauts on the moon could see stars even while standing in bright sunlight, something impossible from Earth. The lack of atmosphere also means there's no weather, no clouds, no rain, no storms, and no protection from cosmic radiation. Daytime temperatures can soar to about 127 degrees Celsius, and at night they plunge to minus 173 degrees. The moon's surface goes from scorching to freezing in a matter of hours because there's nothing to distribute the heat evenly. This extreme temperature shift is one of the biggest challenges for future lunar missions. Without wind or atmosphere to moderate the climate, technology and habitats must be built to survive both extremes. Engineers have to design materials that can handle rapid expansion and contraction without cracking. Solar panels, batteries, and instruments must all be adapted to withstand these harsh cycles. So while the lack of wind makes the moon peaceful, it also makes it dangerous. Another fascinating side effect of a windless world is how light behaves. On Earth, light scatters in all directions because of the air. That's why shadows are soft and edges look blurred. But on the moon, shadows are pitch black and sharply defined because there's nothing to scatter the light. When astronauts walked on the surface, the stark contrast between light and darkness made it difficult to judge depth and distance. In some areas, their shadows were so dark that it felt like stepping into a void. Even though there's no wind, the moon's surface is not completely static. It's constantly bombarded by micrometeorites, tiny dust-sized rocks traveling at tens of thousands of kilometers per hour. These impacts stir the surface in microscopic ways, like invisible ripples in slow motion. This is sometimes called space weathering. It's not wind, but over time it does change the moon's appearance slightly, darkening the soil and giving it a glassy texture. So the moon is not just windless, it's timeless. Every mark, every crater, every grain of dust tells a story millions of years old. It's a world frozen in silence, untouched by the forces that shape Earth every second. Yet this silence is what makes it invaluable to science. Because nothing erases the past, scientists can study ancient impacts and learn about the early history of the solar system just by studying the lunar surface. So, in short, the moon has no wind because it has no atmosphere. It lost it long ago due to weak gravity and lack of a magnetic field. Without wind, there's no weather, no erosion, and no sound. Only stillness. What we see on the moon today is a snapshot of what space looked like billions of years ago. It's a frozen archive of cosmic history, preserved in perfect silence. So the next time you look up at the full moon, remember this. Every crater you see has been there for ages, untouched and unmoved. The moon doesn't change because nothing moves it. There's no breeze to whisper across its plains, no clouds to hide its scars, no storms to wash away its past. Just dust, rock, and silence. A world where time stands still. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Wiseuse for more cosmic stories that make the universe a little easier to understand.